Thank you all for joining us for our discussion on what the activation of Article 50 means for businesses. I'm Henrietta Brady and I'm the Director of Policy and Strategic Relationships at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce. Now, there's no denying that Brexit is a fairly complicated agenda, but at the Chambers we've been working hard to try and break this down into sensible, bite-sized chunks to help our members understand what the challenges and opportunities are out there for their businesses. Here to help me with this today are Professor Julian Beer and Dr. Andrew Glencloss. Julian is Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Birmingham City University. He leads on the university's research, enterprise and business engagement strategy, forging links between businesses and higher education. He has also been a leading figure in the establishment of the Centre for Brexit Studies at Birmingham City University, and he's a member of the Chamber's Brexit Advisory Group, as well as President of the British American Business Council for the Midlands. Andrew is a Senior Lecturer in the Department of Politics and International Relations at Aston University. Andrew is an expert on EU politics and has been leading research into the factors that led to the Brexit vote, and he recently published a book on the subject. Good afternoon to you both.
Good afternoon, Henrietta.
So Julian, my first question is for you. So we know the activation of Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty has formally been confirmed, but what happens now? What's the timeline?
The timeline, it goes for consideration on the 29th of April to the European Council, and then following that, after consideration, it'll be probably April 2019 that we'll know the eventual outcome of those negotiations and discussions.
So we've got a bit of a weight on our hands in terms of next steps.
2 years of uncertainty.
Great. So on that note, the Centre for Brexit Studies has already been leading research into the potential impact of Brexit on the region's economy. In your view, what does the activation of Article 50, what does this news mean for local businesses, and what potential impact should they be aware of?
Practically nothing. Until we know the eventual outcomes of any discussions and negotiations. It won't impact on businesses other than, I will say, as some advice to businesses, don't stop trading, don't stop doing business, because that's absolutely key. And especially in emerging markets and markets that aren't affected by the negotiations, I think that's going to be absolutely crucial for businesses in the Midlands and the UK as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you're very much saying keep on going, keep looking for the opportunities.
Carry on regardless.
So Andrew, last year of course there were lots of concerns, very well publicised, about what the impact of the Leave vote would have on the economy. However, at the Chamber we've noticed in particular our quarterly business report has been showing really strong positivity amongst businesses in the region. Predictions on turnover and profitability are up, as are domestic and export sales, but so too are increasing concerns about costs and exchange rates in particular. As far as you're aware, have local businesses been impacted by Brexit to date?
I think they've been affected by a mindset of uncertainty, and on that basis there are worries about recruitment of skilled employees because the labour market situation where we now have a shortage of skilled workers, we're not sure how we're going to recruit people if we don't have access to the EU single market for workers. But on that basis, there's no reason to think that there aren't going to be ways of accommodating those kind of changes.
So again, you're saying it's the uncertainty has been the issue there. Looking ahead to the future now, you recently published a monograph entitled Why the UK Voted for Brexit, David Cameron's Great Miscalculation. So in your view, is Brexit entirely a miscalculation, or do you actually see opportunities for businesses in there as well as challenges?
It was definitely a miscalculation on David Cameron's part. He bet his political future on it, and he expected too much probably from the renegotiation, and when that failed to really deliver a substantive gain, he bet everything on thinking that he could frighten the British public into voting for the status quo, and that didn't turn out as expected. When it comes though to the disruptive effects of Brexit, I think that if there are going to be benefits from that disruption, then they will come from challenging businesses to think and work differently and to adapt on that basis with new markets, new forms of skills and investment in training, so that actually that could be the way forward in a positive way.
So disruption can be creative as well as damaging.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So looking at these challenges, looking at what was discussed earlier, I mentioned businesses are concerned about increasing costs, exchange rates. Julian, are you aware of any businesses that are actually already taking steps to prepare for Brexit? And if yes, what have you seen? How are businesses preparing?
I think it goes back to what's just been said actually. Businesses are looking at the uncertainty in terms of skills, access to markets, but also businesses I'm talking to, and certainly as a sector, universities are looking at opportunities elsewhere. And I think businesses that I'm speaking to on a daily basis, as I said earlier, they're just getting on with it and just looking for those opportunities and where they can actually make a positive difference. At this point in time, it's uncertainty that's actually the challenge. But as it unfolds and negotiations sort of unfurl, I think it'll be more positive as we go along.
Mm-hmm. Certainly, we've been hearing from a lot of people who are saying uncertainty is just the new normal.
It certainly is.
Andrew, in terms of how businesses are preparing, have you heard anything different, Julian? Are businesses just pushing on, looking for new opportunities? Is there anything that's come out from your conversations?
I think one area is contingency planning, and the more contingency planning, the better I think businesses will be, because there are different scenarios that are still possible, and we won't know until the end of the negotiations about whether or not there's a free trade agreement that will actually kick in or when. And on that basis, I think that calling on expertise to try and model the different possible scenarios is one way of getting at least a step ahead and getting some control over that uncertainty.
Mm-hmm. So there you have it, looking at all the different scenarios, potentially quite a few different ones there in terms of what the outcomes could be, but businesses doing what they can to plan ahead and figure out where the potential impacts could hit them.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, as we heard from Julian earlier, this is just the first step in quite a long negotiation process, the activation of Article 50. So, Andrew, we know there's lots of areas of uncertainty, but what would you like to see the government prioritising when it comes to securing agreement as a matter of urgency?
So two things: the status of Britons abroad, and therefore also reciprocally of EU citizens in the UK, and on top of that, the customs arrangements that will need to be put in place in order to cover for the eventual withdrawal from the EU customs union. I think those are absolutely essential points for trying to give some kind of level platform for business.
Fantastic. Julian, do you have anything to add to that?
Other than in parallel to negotiations on Brexit, I would like to see the government focusing some resource, not all of its resource, on the Brexit negotiations, and doing deals with countries well outside the agreement. Because if we take our eye off the ball with those other countries, Europe accounts for around 40% approximately of our trade. There's another 60% to go for. So look at the States, 19 to 20% approximately. That's a major market for us. So if we take our eye off the ball in terms of negotiations with other potential trading partners, whilst we're untangling the web of Brexit, I think it would be a real mistake from the government and for businesses.
Mm-hmm. And do you think there's a big role for government as well in securing domestic policy, getting the house in order, as well as looking at e-negotiations as a priority?
Absolutely, and most of the laws, if you listen to what the latest is, will be repealed and put back into British law.
Mm.
So I think it's really essential that we focus on the rest of the world and looking at deals with the rest of the world and getting on with trade regardless, as I say. But it is worth saying that businesses need to be really cognizant of some of the impacts like trademarking law, intellectual property and many other aspects that could affect them in terms of Brexit negotiations, and make sure that things like that don't slip under the wire whilst they're focusing on the major issues and the large issues.
Fantastic. So there you have it. I now have one final question for you both. If you could give a business just one piece of advice, and I think you've both mentioned a few during discussion so far, but if you just one piece of advice to give a business on how they should be preparing for Brexit, what would that be?
Don't wait until a deal is done. You need to prepare as soon as possible.
Keep doing business.
Keep cracking on. Fantastic. Well, thank you both very much for sharing your thoughts on the impact of the activation of Article 50. For businesses in Greater Birmingham who are watching this video, I would actively encourage you to check out the Brexit section of the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce website. We have a range of different briefing documents, blog posts from partner organisations such as BCU and Aston University, as well as our own experts on what Brexit really means for business. And we also have the British Chambers of Commerce Brexit Business Priorities document, which sets out the key campaigning areas that we're focusing on when we're representing businesses with stakeholders. On top of that, for viewers who are trading internationally or looking to start exporting, I would actively encourage you to check out the Greater Birmingham International Business Hub, where we offer a wide range of different support services and advice and guidance. Information on both of those can be found at the Greater Birmingham Chambers of Commerce website, www.greaterbirminghamchambers.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter @GRBHamChambers for the latest news and views. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.